How could it be? Tang San was shocked as he looked at Lu Yuan, who was completely unharmed, and instinctively spoke his heart. There's nothing impossible. Lu Yuan stood calmly in place. If a person with spatial abilities cannot dodge the most basic physical attacks in place, it is better to dig a pit and bury themselves. Keywords of the novel. From the power of space to the universe without pop-ups, from the power of space to the universe. Download the complete collection of TXT, and read the latest chapters from the power of space to the universe. Chapter 1. Space. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Space is a difficult thing to understand and describe. Unlike force, space, time, and destiny may not be as powerful as force, but in other aspects, they are far superior. The unique mystique of space. The indestructibility unique to time. The unique observational nature of fate. In terms of difficulty, among the 3,000 great roads, only these three are the most difficult to deal with. So how do I use it? Lu Yuan lay on the shabby little bed, raised his right hand, staring at the peculiar pattern on the back of his hand and muttering to himself. The color of the pattern is silver, which looks more like a circle from the outside. Of course, the reason why it is said to be more like a circle. Mainly because there is a straight silver horizontal line passing through the middle of the circle, which damages the integrity of the circle. Unlike other children, Lu Yuan is the only innate soul power in this small village. The reason why he is only 2 is mainly because he is not the only innate soul power. In the village, another person with innate soul power is called Tang San. He also has a wine lover named Tang Hao. Regarding this, Lu Yuan is very grateful that he has not forgotten the general plot after his travels. Of course, if we only look at the protagonist, Lu Yuan still thinks it's better to hang out with Xiao Yan. Compared to Tang San in the second and third parts, Xiao Yan has always been quite loyal. Ideas are beautiful. But the ultimate result proved one thing. Ideas are ideas, facts are facts. Not to mention crossing the world again. Now he hasn't even figured out how to use his martial soul. Lu Yuan could feel that there was a very noticeable fluctuation in the space at hand. Even the space around him fluctuated. This proves that his martial soul is closely related to space. But he doesn't know how to use and manipulate it. Tang San's first martial soul, Blue Silver Grass, followed a controlled development path and eventually advanced to become the Blue Silver Emperor, improving the quality of his martial soul. Tang San's second martial soul, Haotian Hammer, will follow a strong attack development path. Due to the extremely high quality of martial soul, there is no need to further improve its quality. Or rather, even if Tang San wants to improve the quality of the Haotian Hammer, there is nothing he can do. But he is different. There are no shortcomings in the space system. Both in terms of attack and defense. Even auxiliary aspects are involved. The development route is clearly arranged, so he doesn't have to worry at all. The only thing that stumped him was that the door in front of him couldn't be pushed open. I can't even get started, the imagined future is just a dream and a bubble. Lost in thought, Lu Yuan paid no attention to time. It wasn't until his stomach let out a growl that Lu Yuan regained his senses. The sunset sets in the west. The sky is getting dark. It's indeed time for dinner. Lu Yuan sighed lightly, put on his shoes, and walked into the kitchen to look at the rice vat. Sure enough, there is not a single grain of rice in the rice jar. The little face couldn't help but collapse. Although his memory is excellent and worthy of pride, it cannot be eaten as a meal. After drinking more water and comforting his protesting stomach, Lu Yuan returned to bed, covered himself with a blanket, and closed his eyes. Go to sleep, once you fall asleep, you won't be hungry. Bang 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 bang. Bang 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 bang. The short, powerful, and rapid knocking on the door woke up Lu Yuan, who had just fallen asleep. Who is it? Xiao Yuan, open the door. I'm your grandfather Jack. I need to ask your thoughts on something. Lu Yuan couldn't help but mutter, I'm still Joseph. Of course, this doesn't affect him getting up and going to open the door. Poured a glass of water and placed it in front of the village elder Jack. Lu Yuan sat on the other side of the chair, listening to old Jack chattering on about the problem. After a moment, Lu Yuan briefly summarized old Jack's words. It's just a matter of who the admission quota is for. Although I enrolled as a working-class student, as a child from a small village, having a place to enroll is actually quite good. After all, it is a junior, Soul Master, college. If it's as usual, there's actually no suspense about who this spot will be given to. But this year, two innate geniuses with full soul power emerged at the same time. Tang San is clever and pleasing. But although he has innate soul power, his martial soul is a useless martial soul like blue-silver grass. The future seems destined. Although Lu Yuan is also naturally full of soul power, no one knows what his martial soul is. Even Su Yuntao, the deacon of the martial soul hall responsible for awakening, said he was not clear about what the child's martial soul was. Up and down, there is an extra pattern on the back of the hand. Can ghosts recognize what this martial soul is? Can it be that the anti-counterfeiting label was given by God? A genius with an abandoned martial soul, a genius with an uncertain martial soul. There is only one admission quota. From awakening to now, after most of the day, old Jack only felt that his hair was falling off in droves. What did Tang San say? Don't mention it. The third party really wants to go, but you also know that alcoholics bad temper. We must stop the third party to the death and not let them go. Speaking of it, old Jack was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. Lu Yuan spread his hand and said, since Tang San's father is blocking him from going, why don't you give me this spot? Anyway, he probably won't be able to go to Tang San. Wasting is also wasting. Why don't you give me a try? What if I can make a name for myself? Old Jack couldn't help but nod. This statement is reasonable. However, although the palms and backs are all flesh, there will always be a bias. Old Jack inevitably had a slight hesitation. Furthermore, Grandpa Jack, you think this way. Tang San's martial soul is already an abandoned martial soul, but my martial soul has not yet figured out what it is. Even if my martial soul is also a waste martial soul, it's half a pound against 8 liang, similar to Tang San. But what if my martial soul is not a useless one? If it were a useful martial soul, wouldn't its potential be much greater than Tang San? Think about it, is that the truth? Lu Yuan's words moved old Jack. Old Jack excitedly patted the table and said, okay, we'll give you the enrollment quota for our village. Pack up and tidy up. I'll see if I can find a time to take you into the city these next few days. I'll trouble you then. Lu Yuan stood at the door, speaking while pretending to see off old Jack, but was quickly stopped by old Jack. Watching old Jack's receding figure, Lu Yuan closed the door and returned to bed to rest peacefully. But at this moment, there are still many people who cannot sleep. For example, lying in bed, Tang San flipped over anxiously. Are you really willing? Tang Sanmeng asked to himself. Many questions have a clear answer. But there are also some questions with multiple answers. You cannot say which of these answers is right or wrong. Because of this issue itself, there is no right or wrong, so there is no right or wrong answer. Listening to the slight noise coming from the side room, Tang Hao's eyes flashed with a hint of complexity. Dragons give birth to dragons, phoenixes give birth to phoenixes, and the son of a mouse can make holes. With one hand of blue-silver grass and the other hand of Haotian hammer, Tang San, who is naturally full of soul power, is simply a waste of talent if not a soul master. But after becoming a soul master, it is almost impossible to live a quiet, stable, and ordinary life again. It's about following his path and living a lifetime under his shadow. Still don't know anything, live a peaceful and happy life. What should I do? As he spoke, Tang Hao had actually made up his mind. As a father, both emotions and reason should not block a child's pursuit of their dreams. He is not a qualified husband and has never been a qualified father. But this time, he wants to try to be a qualified father. Seeking recommendations, collecting, and commenting. Sanlian, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Changes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Changes. A handful of cold water hit Tang San's face, which made him feel refreshed. I didn't sleep much all night. Once again, there are faint dark circles under the eyes. Not obvious, but there is indeed. However, for Tang Hao, who also stayed up all night, this mental exhaustion cannot even be considered as tickling. Both physically and mentally, the title Dolua stands at the pinnacle of the Soul Master realm. Mighty and incredible. Before long, Tang San had prepared congee. But to his surprise, his father Tang Hao woke up at some point and sat at the table waving at him. Tang San put down the bowl in his hand and walked quickly to Tang Hao's side. A heavy hand was placed on Tang San's shoulder. Tang Hao carefully studied Tang San. It took a long time to speak and break the silence. Third, do you really want to study at Soul Master Academy and become a Soul Master? Tang San hesitated for a moment, then nodded with a firm gaze. Tang Hao's eyes flashed with a hint of nostalgia and complexity, and he vigorously patted Tang San's shoulder. Okay, I agree with you going, he said. Tang San's face lit up with joy and he instinctively said, really? Of course it's true. However, you need to agree to some of my requests first. It seemed that some memories had been stirred up, and Tang Hao's voice slowly sank. The smoke from the kitchen rises faintly. Every household is like this. It is obvious that this peaceful small village is slowly losing this tranquility. However, when night falls again, the village will still restore this tranquility. Lu Yuan ran to the hillside early in the morning. The gentle wind brushed over the grass, but it could not conceal the wave of space. The distressed hand stretched out, and the lines on the back of the hand shone brightly in the sunlight. Of course, this could also be his illusion. Because the sunlight itself is shining brightly. Lu Yuan was gnawing on the sour wild fruit while trying to catch this fluctuation. But unfortunately, he did not succeed. However, this failure allowed him to discover some patterns. If we change the way we use it, abandon capture, and switch to bouncing, there seems to be a different change. Fingertip movement. Following the feeling, vigorously flick the most obvious wave pattern. The total amount of soul power in the body suddenly decreased by about 1/10. Immediately, the spatial fluctuations at hand suddenly produced a different reaction. To be precise, it should have been a moment of confusion. This wave pattern breaks directly, accompanied by the force being forcibly changed in the trajectory of movement. In Lu Yuan's perception, it was more like a slightly shorter transparent silk thread. This thin semi-curved ripple flies straight towards the square pen. The giant stone in the distance had no ability to rebound and was directly cut in half. The fracture surface is as smooth as a mirror. But this is not over yet. Although the curvature of this ripple was indeed much smaller, it still effortlessly swept past the nearby tree with its remaining strength. The curved curve gradually tends towards smoothness. Finally, the ripple slowly straightened and hid in the distant space. It seems to merge with space once again. Space cutting. Looking at the giant stone that had been cut in half, and then reaching out to touch the big tree with a small half of its trunk cut off, Lu Yuan's words were full of affirmation. Although the power and range of this space cutting are very small, and the motion trajectory is still a straight line, but judging from its sharpness, it is definitely a spatial cutting. There's no problem with the essence. The only problem is proficiency. The power of space cutting that is newly used is definitely different from that of space cutting that is used at full proficiency. The ripple moves forward without any resistance, including cutting open boulders. The only change is the curvature of this ripple. Although the final curvature gradually disappears, this is also a normal phenomenon. After all, he only gave so much soul power. We cannot expect this ripple. We can fly forward tens of thousands of meters in a state without any wear and tear. The soul power inside the body is recovering at an extremely slow speed. Of course, if in a meditative state, the speed of soul power recovery will slightly increase. However, the top priority is to improve proficiency. Only with increasing proficiency can he possibly come into contact with and develop more advanced space handling skills. For example, spatial barriers, for example, solidification space, for example, the dual divine powers of a certain land, for example, in the second section of the Flying Thunder God of the Sect Master. In short, for those who are proficient in spatial attributes, it is not difficult to use or develop some practical and cool tricks. What's wrong with being a little handsome and showing off? Very normal. After all, the essence of space is unpredictable. Lu Yuan carefully wrapped his fingers with soul power, constantly gesturing in the air. In the village. What? In a room, Tang San couldn't help but let out a scream of surprise. Having agreed to his father's many conditions, Tang San thought this was the final hurdle, and the next step should be smooth sailing. I didn't expect the quota to run out. This quota gave another innate soul power. Lu Yuan. Same village as him. Although not considered a good friend, I still have a familiar face. Xiao San, you did come a bit late. If it had been last night. A hint of regret flashed on old Jack's face. To be honest, if Tang San agreed to it on the spot or found him before he agreed to Lu Yuan, the admission quota would have been settled long ago. But now, there is no room for repentance. Although Tang San is clever and likable. But as the village chief, he can never be untrustworthy. I only agreed with Xiao Yuan last night, and even after a whole day, I changed my mind where should he put his face. Although he forcefully reneged, he was able to give Tang San the admission quota. But bully the small with the big, to bully a 6-year-old orphan, don't say he's unreasonable, even if he has reason, conscience won't allow him to do so. Tang San stood up with a whoosh. How could he do this? I'll go find him and explain it clearly. Wait a minute. Old Jack instinctively reached out his hand to stop, but Tang San had already run outside the door. Old Jack only felt a faint weariness in his heart. Sighed and ran while shouting to Tang San, as an elder, he always thinks more. Tang San is a clever but also a high-spirited child. Coincidentally, Lu Yuan is also a high-spirited child. I would rather be hungry often than go to my neighbor's house to grab a bite to eat. Two high-spirited children bumped into each other, and then one of them went away with anger. I'm not sure if we can really start a fight. Fighting is not a big deal. Which of the skinny children in the village has never fought before? But with this move, if there was no one to stand by, I'm afraid one of these two high-spirited children would have to fall down to complete it. Don't make such a big deal out of it again. But to Tang San's regret, he pounced on nothing. From the details, it seems that Lu Yuan probably left early in the morning. This made him very depressed. Old Jack's heart has calmed down a lot. Tang San, however, did not give up and went door to door to inquire about Lu Yuan's movements. Are you looking for Xiao Yuan? He left early in the morning, so he should have gone to a few nearby hills. I can't say which small hill it is, but it must be going out. Old Jack's face collapsed and he glared fiercely at the innocent middle-aged woman. Looking back. Sure enough, Tang San ran away again. So, when old Jack arrived at the mountainside with the indignant Tang San, what he saw was the scene of Lu Yuan gesturing in the air. Tang San looked up at Lu Yuan on the hillside, unsure of what he was doing, and his anger surged upwards. It was this despicable person who took advantage of his danger and snatched his admission spot. He thought the other person was his good friend in vain. I didn't expect to do such a heinous act. Tang San walked expressionlessly to Lu Yuan, with a cold gleam in his eyes. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a sentence from his teeth. Are you very proud? Seeking recommendations, collecting, and commenting. Continue with 3 consecutive sessions, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. What are you proud of? Lu Yuan looked up at Tang San in front of him and asked in confusion. You know what you're proud of? A despicable person. Watching the other person's puzzled expression, Tang San could no longer suppress his anger and clenched his fist, punching towards Lu Yuan's face. The fist was mixed with a faint jade color. The jade color is not pure. But in terms of power, it is also enough to serve as a strong attack-type soul skill during the initial stage of the Soul Master. Stop it. Old Jack saw Tang San waving his fist from a distance. But the distance he was at made it impossible for him to personally stop Tang San's actions. Therefore, he can only hope for his words. But the fist eventually fell. The anger in Tang San's eyes dissipated a lot, replaced by an incredible expression. Blocked it. No. Not right. It should be said that the air blocked his fist. Tang Sanmeng withdrew and stepped back, distancing himself from Lu Yuan. I see. Tang San's mouth slightly raised subconsciously, as if he wanted to laugh, but also seemed to be mocking something. Sharp eyes stared tightly at Lu Yuan, who was still sitting on the grass. The martial soul can control the air. Is this your confidence to snatch the admission quota from me? A hint of helplessness and pity flashed in Lu Yuan's eyes. Without concealment, Tang San naturally saw it clearly. Don't speak so harshly or so absolutely. Especially before knowing the ins and outs of things, it's best not to draw conclusions easily. I never snatched it, but naturally got the admission spot. I hope you don't misunderstand, let alone talk nonsense. The words are full of sincerity. It's like a sincere elder admonishing younger generations, telling them where they did right and where they did wrong. Tang San's eyes became increasingly calm, but his anger grew even higher in his heart. What qualifications do you have to comment on a despicable and shameless person? He also said not to draw conclusions easily. Where else does he need to continue drawing conclusions? The conclusion has come out. The admission quota has been taken away by the other party. But when Tang San thought about it, he understood the twists and turns in the other person's words. What to say is to first understand the background of the matter. What else are you saying? Don't misunderstand, it's just that after getting the admission quota, I want to go back and embellish those embarrassing things I did before. Bullying people too much. It's like kicking your nose on your face. Stop it all. Stop it all. Old Jack rushed out of breath. To be honest, with his old arms and legs, it is a miracle that he can chase Tang San for such a long distance both inside and outside. Old Jack himself also thinks the same way. Of course, the current focus is not on this. But how to stop the tense Tang San and the calm Lu Yuan? It seems that Lu Yuan is very calm. But Tang San, who has always been clever, is not very calm. Even resorted to violence. However, the situation has not progressed towards the worst possible direction. This made old Jack instinctively breathe a sigh of relief. I left early this morning, Grandpa Jack. What exactly happened? From Tang San's words, it seems that this matter is still related to me. Lu Yuan spoke up and asked. In fact, when Tang San said, "Is this the confidence you have to snatch the admission quota from me?" Lu Yuan had already roughly understood. Although no one explained the process of the incident to him in detail from beginning to end, combining the plot and the general personality of the characters, it is not difficult to infer the outcome. When I was a child, I always liked to pretend to understand with confusion. But now, he prefers to pretend to be confused with clarity. Saying that he has understood the situation will only make people feel that his intentions are too heavy. After all, he left early in the morning, so it's normal for him to not understand what happened. Pretending to be coldly approached, he went to ask the village elder Jack, who was confused and puzzled. What had happened? The image of an innocent person was quickly constructed. Although this image may be a bit thin, it cannot withstand Tang San's strong emphasis in the future. An ancient person who has never even tasted green tea knows what green tea techniques are. Even if he sees through it, it doesn't prevent Lu Yuan from temporarily installing another white lotus flower. A hint of embarrassment appeared on old Jack's old face, stuttering as he explained the process. So, what does this matter to me? After listening to how old Jack had edited many scenes, Lu Yuan spread out his hands and put on a still unclear look, asking Tang San not far away. Tang San was so angry that he almost didn't bite his teeth. How could a person be so shameless? Suddenly opening the arm that old Jack had specifically blocked in front of him, Tang San's cold light in his eyes had already taken on a hint of killing intent. I want to duel with you. Whoever wins, who owns this spot? The cold tone of Mori's voice was completely incompatible with Tang San's anger in his heart. But there are always some people who become calmer the more angry they become. Lu Yuan sneered coldly. Not to mention whether this duel is meaningful or not, even if it is, there is no need to conduct it. Winning, Lu Yuan won't get anything. But if you lose, you have to give up the admission quotas you have obtained. When the opportunity comes to you, for some reason, you haven't seized it. But when I caught the opportunity, you said, I should give it back to you because you saw it first. Lu Yuan looked straight at Tang San and said, do you think it's ridiculous? So you dare not duel with me? A hint of pride flashed on Tang San's face, but no one knew what he was thinking in his heart. A clumsy provocation. I'm really disappointed that you didn't fall for it, and I apologize for that. Lu Yuan mercilessly exposed Tang San's little thoughts, and after that, he even mocked him. So you just don't dare to duel with me? Admit it. Lu Yuan, you coward. Tang San shouted with his neck crossed. Completely disregarding the iron-faced expression of old Jack. Although old Jack was not sure about his expression, he also knew that he was definitely not looking good. The original intention was to turn big things into small ones, and small things into small ones. But Tang San repeatedly teased and angered Lu Yuan. Not to mention that Lu Yuan was just a child, even the old man couldn't help but listen on the side. Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows. Humility is a beautiful character. But excessive humility is not enough. Dueling is possible. If you win, I have no objection to giving you the admission quota. So if I win, what can I get from you? Me, Tang San's words involuntarily paused and then remained silent. The unique skills of the Tang clan must not be passed down externally. But after excluding the many Tang sect skills he had learned in his past life, Tang San was shocked to find that he really didn't have any valuable items to hold on to. What you have learned. Exchange my admission quota. This includes your unique meditation-like technique, your skillful throwing of stones, the faint jade color on your fist when you just punched, and your method of practicing by watching the sun every morning. Although he knows the name, Lu Yuan still thinks it's better to do a full set of acting. Tang San's eyes twitched. This is no longer a matter of equivalent exchange. This is clearly the lion's big mouth. So he instinctively refused, impossible. That's okay. Without hesitation, Lu Yuan turned around and walked down the mountain slope. 1 step. 2 steps. 3 steps. 5 steps. 10 steps. Wait. I agreed. The sound of Tang San gritting his teeth came from behind. Lu Yuan turned his head. I hope you don't tamper with these methods. Upon hearing these words, Tang San's face turned black and he said, I haven't done that yet. However, you must promise me first that even if you win in the end, these methods will not be passed on. This is his final bottom line. If Lu Yuan doesn't agree, then he has no choice. Looking at Tang San, who was forced to bite someone with an urgent eye. Lu Yuan nodded silently. The dog jumps over the wall in a hurry, and the rabbit even bites when it's in a hurry. This price code is already quite generous. If you raise the price code further, there may be a chance of a split. At that time, he was not sure how much Tang San would lose, but he would definitely not receive as much as the current price. Seeking collection, seeking recommendations, seeking comments. Today is another day for seeking 3 consecutive days. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The world itself is unfair. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The world itself is unfair. On the low hill, both Lu Yuan and Tang San took a few steps back and stood still from a distance. Old Jack looked at Lu Yuan, then at Tang San, and finally sighed helplessly, moving away from the middle of the two. Tang San's gaze sank slightly. He has no absolute certainty of winning this battle. Both sides are soul warriors and have not obtained soul rings, so naturally they do not have soul skills. From the just punch, he had roughly figured out the purpose and effect of Lu Yuan's martial soul. Just like how he can easily control the growth of blue-silver grass without a soul ring, Lu Yuan can also use his martial soul to easily control the air without a soul ring. In terms of martial soul, he is not superior. So Tang San picked up a handful of broken stones on the ground and used a special throwing technique to divide them into several batches and throw them one after another towards Lu Yuan. The broken stones made a sharp whistling sound in the air, but they all stopped not far from Lu Yuan before falling to the ground. From a distance, it was like an invisible wall standing in front of Lu Yuan. "I see how long you can hold on." Accompanied by Tang San's sharp shout, a pile of broken stones once again hit Lu Yuan with a head and face. But he was once again stopped in front of Lu Yuan. Immediately after, there was a handful of gravel with a whistling sound. Then it was intercepted again. Fortunately, there are many stones on this small slope, and it is not difficult to find. Otherwise, Tang San would not have enough ammunition to consume Lu Yuan. Use crushed stones for remote consumption. Use ghost shadow step for remote evasion. Use Xuanyu hands for close combat. Although he couldn't break through Lu Yuan's turtle shell for a while, Lu Yuan couldn't have been holding on to this turtle shell all the time. Martial soul is a martial soul, and soul power is soul power. He can continuously consume Lu Yuan's soul power without using his soul power. But Lu Yuan can only passively defend. Even if he occasionally counterattacks, he will still be dodged with his ghostly footsteps. For a long time, Lu Yuan will only collapse without fighting. It can be said that Tang San's tactical arrangement is very good, fully utilizing his geographical advantage and leveraging his own strengths. Watching Tang San constantly testing himself, a hint of anger surged in Lu Yuan's heart. Of course, this cannot alleviate the fact that his body is stiff. Now he can't even lift his arm and has no ability to counterattack. I can't even control the slight movements of my fingers. Tang Hao. Lu Yuan silently recited the name in his heart and kept his anger firmly hidden in his heart. Can use pressure to continuously suppress him without crushing him, and the scope of pressure is only targeted at him, without involving nearby old Jack and Tang San. Who else can have this precise control in this small village besides Tang Hao? However, compared to its powerful strength, this heart is even more contemptuous. Although it is unclear whether Tang Hao's old injury is good or not. But even if Tang Hao's injury is not healed at all, he still has the standard strength of the title Dolua level. A title Dolua uses intimidation to suppress this soul warrior who has not yet obtained a soul ring, rendering him ineligible for counterattack and having to passively defend. Although I know that your Tang family has always had the character of protecting the calf. But Hudu Zi is not such a protector. Hatred is inevitable in one's heart. Can he still thank Tang Hao for his mercy and not crushing him? And there is also a hint of piercing coldness mixed in this pressure. Not much. Since he had never experienced it in his previous life, Lu Yuan cannot be certain if this is a killing intent. But today, it did make him realize what it means to be like a light on his back. This is no longer biased. This is clearly giving Tang San the correct answer directly, then casually folding the pen in his hand and finally throwing it out of the window. What if he knows the answer? What does he, who doesn't even have a pen, take to answer the question? In other words, does he still have the courage to continue answering the question? The piercing coldness made Lu Yuan dare not act recklessly. He dare not gamble his own life on whether Tang Hao will take action. Winning the bet, one admission spot. If he loses the bet, he will die. According to Tang Hao's temperament, Lu Yuan still thinks it's better not to gamble. Taking a deep breath, Lu Yuan suppressed the sense of humiliation that surged in his heart. Damn fairness. He thought things too simple. In this world where the strong are respected, even the world itself is unfair. If the world is relatively fair, then there will be no soul masters, no soul beasts, and no gods. However, Han Xian used to be able to endure the humiliation between his legs, why couldn't he? Moreover, the humiliation he suffered has not yet reached the level of humiliation beneath his crotch. Stop it, I'll give up. In front of you. In the void. In the area within Lu Yuan's gaze, transparent silk threads connect at the beginning and end, forming an irregular elliptical-shaped spatial barrier. The space barrier is not damaged at all. But the owner who created it has been forced to bow their head. This battle is not its fault. Just because I met a titled Dolua who doesn't speak of martial arts. Tang San smiled and threw the broken stones in his hand onto the ground. He perfectly implemented the expected tactics. Although the fact that blue-silver grass is a useless martial soul disappointed him, he not only had another martial soul, but also defeated another innate genius full of soul power without using it. This precisely proves that martial souls cannot determine everything. Although I don't know how you did it, I have indeed been greatly suppressed. However, being defeated by another person with innate soul power is not unjustified. You can take the admission quota. I'm not the kind of person who can't afford to lose either. Feeling his body's flexibility slowly recovering, Lu Yuan touched the cold sweat on his back and couldn't help but sneer in his heart. If he had only serious doubts about Tang Hao before. So now, that's for sure. Where could there be such a coincidence? As soon as he gave up on his front foot, the pressure from his back foot dissipated silently. Who are you fooling? Do you really think he's a 6-year-old child? If Tang Hao hadn't been observing this place in the dark now, Lu Yuan would have dared to perform an inverted split in public. However, the most urgent mistake is to get out of this mud pit first. Lu Yuan walked over to Tang San with an ugly expression, reached out and patted his shoulder. Without saying a word, he crossed over Tang San and walked down the mountain slope. The actions and expressions all reflect the frustration in Lu Yuan's heart at this moment. Tang San instinctively turned around. Lu Yuan's lonely figure has drifted further and further away. Did you go too far? This idea flashed through Tang San's mind, and then he was squeezed out by the joy of victory and obtaining spoils of war. There is not even a trace of presence left. Old Jack looked at Tang San, who was immersed in joy, and then at Lu Yuan, who had walked away, and let out a deep sigh. Although only 3 people were aware of the specifics of the incident, it quickly became known to every household in the small village towards evening. Small villages have the benefits of small villages, and big cities also have the benefits of big cities. Once something interesting happens in the small village, it doesn't take 3 or 5 days. It only takes 1 day or 1 night to be understood by the gossip villagers in the village. Of course, understanding is not just about the matter itself. There are also 7 or 8 adapted short stories derived from the events themselves. Lu Yuan lay in bed and reached out to touch the pattern on the back of his right hand. The shame of today must be remembered in our hearts. Notice. I am born with a talent that will be useful, and 1,000 pieces of gold will be scattered still. Fu. Come on. Seeking collection, seeking comments, seeking recommendations. I always feel like I'm like a third-rate uploader, having to keep going 3 times a day. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. 6 years. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. 6 years. Time flies by so fast. 6 years have passed in a blink of an eye. For Tang San, who was at the Junior Soul Master Academy in Nodding City, it was a slightly dull 6 years. Apart from the interesting conflicts that occurred at the beginning of enrollment, the remaining time is mostly spent in daily cultivation. Dull and uninteresting. But there is a full sense of fulfillment. Feeling the abundant soul power in his body, Tang San glanced at the petite and lovely little dance next to him, and then at the people inside the 7 houses. The corner of his mouth inadvertently rose slightly. People need to look forward. Tang San had already lost his hatred towards a child who left in anger among the villagers. Today, he is a noble war soul master. All the people in contact are soul masters or talented soul warriors. The lonely back of the other person I saw on the last side can only slowly fade away in his memory, and finally merge into those unimportant memories. Of course, these unimportant memories can also be referred to as memories. Most people won't flip through this kind of thing. Only elderly people who have no desires or aspirations, or those who have achieved great success, have the time and energy to review the glory of the past. For Tang San, who is currently striving to cultivate, memories are meaningless waste. It cannot help him improve his cultivation speed, nor can it allow him to draw practical experience from it. Graduation. Xiao Wu jumped up happily. Tang San couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, it's been 6 years now, and he should also graduate. So, next you should go and take a look at the Shrek Academy that the teacher talked about. It's been 6 years. Lu Yuan sat at the top of the tree, looking up at the moon above his head. A faint bloody smell emanated. But no carnivorous soul beast dares to approach. Lu Yuan's face was gloomy, and he reached out to pull out a chubby, enlarged version of a squirrel with pure yellow hair from a nearby tree hole, and rubbed it in his hand. While rubbing, he said. As for what? One by one, they are as timid as rabbits. Can I take all of you in one bite or what? Those who claim to be carnivorous to the outside world end up being less daring than even you, a vegetarian. Why don't we just switch careers? Upon hearing these words, the squirrel couldn't help but glance under the tree. The huge beast's head was placed under the tree. Who was the one who lit a fire and grilled meat here the night before yesterday? Is it still making a mess? Can we clean up this thing first before saying such things? Saying such things now has no persuasiveness at all. Moreover, who says it has the courage? That's clearly impossible to run. Even if it can run, can those newborn cubs in its nest run? For 100,000 years, soul beasts can transform into human form, and even if they do not transform, they can still speak. Although the soul beasts of 10,000 years cannot speak, their wisdom is no less than that of ordinary adult humans. So, for a millennium soul beast, understanding some simple human language is not difficult. The only drawback is that intelligence is worrying. However, it is much better than the foolish centenary soul beast and the 10-year soul beast that follows instincts. Pikachu, do you think so? Feeling the gradual increase in the opponent's strength, the squirrel hurriedly nodded, trying to control its slightly trembling body and try to make the other person show mercy. To be honest, it really wants to indicate that it's not called Pikachu, nor does it want such a name. Then I also want to refute that the words spoken by the human in front of me cannot be believed at all, they are all false. Finally, I want to tell this human that pulling oneself out of bed and playing with it in the middle of the night is a very bad behavior, but for the sake of his litter, the squirrel felt it was better to lie flat. It is not without considering resistance. But after seeing the head of the giant beast lying under the tree, it extinguished its rebellious thoughts. A two-headed red dog that has been around for 20,000 years has even raised its braids, and the same goes for it. The beast god is above. It's not that it's not brave enough or loyal enough. The enemy is really too powerful. It is to avoid worthless casualties. Lu Yuan playfully touched the shaking yellow squirrel, released his hand, and put it back into the tree hole. For some cute-looking, likable and less aggressive small animals, Lu Yuan doesn't mind letting them have a way out. This is the starry forest. The beast race is the master of this place. He can only be considered a guest. So, except for necessary and special circumstances, Lu Yuan is not easily able to take down assassins. At most, in order to hone one's combat skills, beat a soul beast to half-death and then throw it back. Of course, it is also possible to be beaten to half-death by soul beasts and escape with their unique spatial abilities. In short, during the process of beating and being beaten by soul beasts, Lu Yuan's soul power had unknowingly reached level 46. In other words, he is now a 12-year-old soul sect. The increase in soul power level is certainly commendable. But in these 6 years, the mature spatial soul skills developed one by one are the confidence he dares to continue staying in the starry forest. The power and range of space cutting have been greatly improved, and linear attack routes can also be temporarily reversed. The scope of the spatial barrier has been expanded to all directions and can instantly protect the entire body. The only unsolvable weakness is a weak point. Even if he stands in mid-air, there is still a weak point in the space barrier. Any complete line used in a closed shape, even if reduced to the smallest, still has a point. This is the weak point that he is currently unable to solve. As long as his eyesight is sharp and his soul skills are accurately cast, his spatial barrier can be shattered with a single blow. Fortunately, most of these soul beasts are iron and silly. In addition to these two old skills, Lu Yuan has also developed many new skills. For example, semi-finished Shenwei, semi-finished Phylician, semi-finished Space Hidden, semi-finished Space Exile. For example, finished product Space Turbulence, finished product Soul Power version Spiral Pill, finished product Space Blade, finished product Storage Space. The reason why semi-finished products are called semi-finished products is mainly because they all have significant and obvious shortcomings. Semi-finished Divine Power, the skill has a longer forward shaking time, and after being released from use, the control over space significantly decreases in a short period of time. Frequent use in combat is simply unrealistic. Although the semi-finished Flying Thunder God can achieve long-distance spatial leaps, it is best to have only one such dagger within a circular radius of 1 kilometer. Once several daggers with the imprint of the Flying Thunder God are placed together, it is easy to cause spatial chaos. In a chaotic state of space, if the operation is not good, a pile of mosaics will be transmitted out. However, mastering the distance and using it as a transmission coordinate is a good choice. The concealment of semi-finished space can only conceal body shape, but cannot conceal odor or trace. Semi-finished space exile, excessive soul power consumption, and inability to determine the location of exile. Unfortunately, if he were to be exiled in place, he was likely to be directly killed. Anyway, just take a look at the semi-finished products. If we really had to rely on these semi-finished skills to conquer the world, then Lu Yuan would have starved to death long ago. Is the storage space not fragrant, or is the space blade not working properly? Is the power of spatial turbulence too strong, or is the spiral pill not good looking? Speaking of which, it seems that Tang San should also go to Shrek College, right? Lu Yuan touched his chin and guessed. So should he send some trouble to the other party as a graduation surprise? Still say, is it better for him to personally go over and constantly add obstacles to Tang San? After all, in name, this can also be considered as a special celebration for Tang San. Although this is another form of congratulations and there is a high probability that it will not be welcomed, but it's different from 6 years ago. Nowadays, he has a semi-finished flying thunder god in his hand. As long as he is not directly beaten to death by Tang Hao in the first place, the success rate of escaping is 100%. What does a little wave have to do with it? Seeking recommendations, collecting, and commenting. It's almost 11 o'clock, another day of seeking 3 consecutive days. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Road Encounter Chasing. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 7. The Unlucky Zhu Zhuyun. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 7. The unlucky Zhu Zhuyun. Zhu Zhuqing looked expressionlessly at the young man in front of him. The tall image that was just established in my heart collapsed directly. Fortunately, she has a cold and aloof personality, which did not lead to facial dysfunction. With a faint sigh, Zhu Zhuqing kindly reminded him. You can't eat them. They drive the soul beasts for 100,000 years. No. Is there a tidal Doluo among them? No. Lu Yuan flipped the meat skewers in his hand and asked back without lifting his head. There's neither this nor that, why can't I eat it? Zhu Zhuqing's lips twitched as if she wanted to say something, but she was immediately blocked by the meat skewers coming towards her. I think you're just hungry. Try it, I think the craftsmanship is pretty good. Lu Yuan also took a skewer of grilled meat and tasted it. To be honest, craftsmanship is really something that has been practiced. When he first entered the starry forest, he was very embarrassed. Don't mention eating skewers. Even vegetarians can't catch up. For vegetarian animals, Lu Yuan, who cannot find food, is undoubtedly an outsider. For carnivorous animals, Lu Yuan, who couldn't drink blood from their fur, was also an outsider. So, in order to fill his stomach, Lu Yuan had to try cooking for himself. From the burnt meat chunks that were often roasted at the beginning to the now fully flavored skewers, it can be said that they were all forced out by life, but currently he only knows this type of cooking, and the rest of stewing, boiling, stir-frying, and so on are not within his ability range. In addition to his culinary skills, Lu Yuan also verified a fact. Make up for what you eat. This statement is not wrong, but it is indeed a bit one-sided. Because not every part of the soul beast's body can be eaten. But consuming a large amount of soul beast meat can indeed enhance physical fitness and quickly replenish soul power. At least a quarter of his level 46 soul power can be attributed to eating soul beast meat. Of course, after finishing the soul beast meat, a life and death battle is a necessary step. This can maximize the upper limit of his soul power level. So Lu Yuan often fights with a powerful soul beast after finishing his meat. Then his soul power level unknowingly broke another level. This effect is not only beneficial for him alone, but is universal for most carnivorous or omnivorous soul beasts. Eating on the flesh and blood of the same animal race can effectively increase one's lifespan. He used this method to forcibly pile up a little white mouse of unknown species for 1,000 years. A young white mouse with no bloodline, no inheritance, and no attack ability, ate raw and became a 1,000-year soul beast. It can be considered as reaching the peak of rat life. Angered, Zhu Zhuqing held the skewer in his hand, frowning as if he wanted to say something more. Lu Yuan chuckled lightly and took advantage of the gap when Zhu Zhuqing took the skewers from his mouth to speak. 15 minutes and 30.7 seconds. To be honest, your patience and perseverance really surprised me. Zhu Zhuqing was startled and instinctively looked around. The tree shadows are swaying, severely obstructing the line of sight. This is one of the favorite environments for soul masters in the agile attack genre. The best way to deal with this situation is to immediately extinguish the fire, as people near the fire will undoubtedly become targets. Lu Yuan spoke calmly and then threw the branch in his hand into the fire. I was not clear about this back then. Hastily starting a fire in the darkness, almost not killed by a 1,000-year-old black leopard. The deterrent effect of flames on some soul beasts is not as great as imagined. At most, it can deter some soul beasts for 10 years. From then on, Lu Yuan understood that without strong strength, it was better not to start a fire at night. Unpreparable accidents often occur at night. Just like at this moment, a crossbow arrow had silently stopped in front of him. The intense toxicity has dyed the arrows made of secret silver material black. The gaze instantly turned cold, but quickly returned to its original state. This way of greeting is not very good. Lu Yuan smiled and said, then turned his gaze to the woman who had walked out of the darkness. Looking at the calm young man in front of him, Zhu Zhuyun sighed in his heart. To be honest, the current situation is indeed a bit tricky. Although the young boy in front of me is young, his strength is also above the standard line. The ease of blocking the poisoned arrow just now proves 1 or 2. But with 2 soul sects and 1 soul king pressing down on the formation, there is still no way to stir up any waves. However, her goal is not the young man in front of her. But it's Zhu Zhuqing behind the young man. She doesn't have the heart to touch any more trouble now, she just wants to solve Zhu Zhuqing immediately and on the spot, and then draw a perfect conclusion to this struggle. So Zhu Zhuyun said straightforwardly. Star Luo Zhu's family is handling affairs, please make way for idle people. The tone was mixed with a faint murderous aura. But this murderous aura was soon suppressed by the murderous aura that was like a raging wave. The light red airflow wrapped around Lu Yuan's body like substance. The piercing chill made Zhu Zhuyun's body instinctively freeze. But as a woman who had seen the world before, Zhu Zhuyun only reacted immediately after a momentary loss of consciousness. Attack with all your might. There is a hoarse tone in the voice. It's like being too excited and causing a hoarse sound. Martial soul instantly possessed. 3 soul rings, yellow, yellow, and purple, emerged. Like fleeing for his life, Zhu Zhuyun disregarded his demeanor and ran desperately in the opposite direction. Kicked onto the iron plate. This is Zhu Zhuyun's only thought. Although I don't know the specific strength of the other party, in terms of this murderous aura, he is definitely a ruthless character. The principle that the son of a daughter cannot afford to sit down is vividly explained by Zhu Zhuyun's own actions. Dozens of soul skills pierced through the night sky, but were all split in half. Equally divided in 2 are their bodies. As martyrs, they did indeed obey orders perfectly. But in the face of space cutting, their resistance is indeed in vain. Different from other martial souls. Lu Yuan's martial soul itself is a pure elemental type of martial soul. Pure elemental martial souls only exist in conjectures and have never been confirmed. Because theoretically, human bodies are almost unable to withstand the impact of pure elemental martial soul awakening. Even the ultimate fire, ultimate ice, ultimate thunder, ultimate light, and so on are barely carried by some powerful beast martial souls. Directly awakening pure elemental martial souls is highly likely to only explode and die. Strength is certain. But the unstoppable power is of no use. Compared to the basic elements of water, fire, light, and darkness, space undoubtedly stands at the pinnacle of the elements. Just a little bit, that's the end of the world. This statement is not an exaggeration to describe the power of spatial attributes. Because space can be folded. 1-fold, 2-fold, 3-fold, 4-fold the space that other element controllers have put in great effort to shatter is nothing more than something that can be easily achieved in the eyes of the space controller. After all, one is doing addition, and the other is doing multiplication. In calculations with the same numerical value, multiplication yields significantly larger values. Unless the controller of other elements reaches an infinite level, only then can they be pushed horizontally with addition. Otherwise, in the same realm, other users of pure elemental martial souls would have no way of causing damage to users of spatial martial souls. Pure elemental martial souls have no way of capturing spatial martial souls, let alone so many miscellaneous soldiers who have been directly defeated by a space cutting. In the darkness, Zhu Zhuyun ran for an unknown distance and stopped panting heavily. It can be seen that sometimes having a full figure is not a good thing. Should we get rid of it? Zhu Zhuyun turned his head to look at the darkness behind him, which was already motionless, and felt as if blood was dripping in his heart. One soul king, 2 soul sects, over 40 great soul masters and soul masters, it seems like they are all finished. If we only look at the surface, although the cost is heavy, Zhu Zhuyun cannot afford it. The problem is, these soul masters are all death warriors trained by Zhu Zhuyun. The kind of warrior who dares to charge up at critical moments. You should know that soul masters, as a recognized aristocratic class on the entire continent, have no low status at all. Effectiveness, yes. To die, no talk. This is the most basic requirement for most soul masters when choosing a faction. The joy of escaping by chance and the sorrow of suffering heavy losses intertwined, and before Zhu Zhuyun could escape from this complex mood, he felt a gust of wind coming from behind his head. Before I could turn around, I fainted with this heavy stick. Want to run? There's no door. With a sneer, Lu Yuan threw away the wooden stick he had found in his hand and jolted the unconscious Zhu Zhuyun on his shoulder, walking back along the same path. When it comes to running, it also depends on the spatial system. Seeking collection, seeking recommendations, seeking comments. Seeking triple, end of this chapter. Chapter 8. Spoils of War. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Spoils of War. Zhu Zhuqing looked at Zhu Zhuyun, who had been carried back by Lu Yuan, and couldn't help but pounce. To be honest, for some unknown reason, there was a hint of displeasure in her heart. This emotion came too suddenly and was somewhat inexplicable. But upon seeing Zhu Zhuyun being mercilessly thrown to the ground by Lu Yuan, this emotion instantly dissipated into the air. What am I? The young man asked back, his puzzled gaze seeming to be mixed with a hint of laughter. Zhu Zhuqing instinctively turned her head and dared not look at the young man. Black hair hung down, covering the slightly complex expression on the girl's face and that slightly flushed face. It's nothing. I just feel a bit too hot. Vague explanations do not conform to the cold and aloof personality of a young girl at all. Too hot. Lu Yuan leaned his hand towards the fire to test the temperature, and then glanced at the location of Zhu Zhuqing. According to common sense, it shouldn't be. The face that had just cooled down seemed to show signs of burning again. Without saying a word, Zhu Zhuqing stood up and sat at a distance from the young man. Although it could also be illuminated by the flames, the constantly trembling heart slowly regained its calmness. She has an engagement. She has a fiancé. So, even an uncertain heartbeat in a girl's mind is equivalent to a betrayal. A whimper interrupted the girl's thoughts. Zhu Zhuyun opened his eyes in confusion. The pain in the back of the head still lingers, but it has eased a lot. The warm flames danced in her pupils, making her exhausted subconsciously want to fall asleep. Whoosh, a sharp piercing sound rang out. Zhu Zhuyun had not yet regained his senses when he saw an additional short sword at the corner of his eye. The pupils unconsciously enlarge. A round blood droplet slid off Zhu Zhuyun's skin at the corner of his eye and dripped onto the blade of his sword, which was tightly pressed against his face. Any deviation of this short sword from the inner side during throwing will result in a different outcome. The full curve trembled violently, and Zhu Zhuyun instantly sat up. Looking at his sister with a look of hatred not far away, as well as the harmless young man sitting next to the fire, Zhu Zhuyun couldn't help but let out a bitter smile. Life is unpredictable. As a pursuer, her front feet are like fish on a chopping board that can be slaughtered. Fate is truly full of drama. Zhu Zhuyun did not resist, did not flee, and did not summon a martial soul to possess. Instead, he wiped the blood from the corner of his eyes and sat quietly in place. The difference in combat power is too significant. The disparity was so great that Zhu Zhuyun couldn't see any hope. Rather than choosing a miserable way of dying, Zhu Zhuyun still hopes to leave with dignity. Why stop me? Watching Zhu Zhuyun sit up unscathed, Zhu Zhuqing clenched his fist, his sharp nails piercing his palm, and a strand of blood flowing down his palm. But the girl didn't care about these things. Instead she stared at Lu Yuan with bright eyes, as if wanting to get a satisfactory answer. At such a close distance, with her accuracy, it's impossible to miss. Moreover, Zhu Zhuyun's physique is much larger than the targets used during practice. Missed the target, it can only be said that someone intervened in the middle. There are a total of 3 people present. She is the one who intervenes, Zhu Zhuyun is the target, so the other person must be the one who intervenes. Lu Yuan did indeed intervene. But no one knows how to intervene. The unique mystique of space makes it difficult for people to notice when Lu Yuan makes a move. It can only be said that a girl's sixth sense is truly spiritual. Based on the basic conditions, one can make their thinking jump and directly find the result. It is true to be deceitful. I'm too lazy to meddle in your affairs. Including past experiences, right or wrong, or hatred, etc. But as a stranger who met by chance, you have no right to decide the life or death of my spoils of war. Especially when you smashed my barbecue grill before. Lu Yuan extended his finger to Zhu Zhuyun, who was at a loss, and looked at Zhu Zhuqing, whose face was full of anger, saying, "This is the loot I captured. So it's normal for me to stop you from killing her." Zhu Zhuyun hesitated to speak on the side. It became a trophy for no reason. It's hard to describe it as good. At least at this moment, Zhu Zhuyun couldn't find a suitable vocabulary to describe his explosive mentality. However, this almost explosive mentality was frozen out in the eyes of the young man like eternal ice. The engine has turned off, so Zhu Zhuyun had no choice but to condemn the young man's lack of martial ethics while maintaining a smile and pretending to be a wooden person. In the situation where the life-saving benefactor on the other side had sufficient reasons, Zhu Zhuqing, who was suffocating all over, could only stare at Zhu Zhuyun tightly, as if wanting to solve him on the spot with his gaze. "My foolish sister, yo," Zhu Zhuyun muttered inwardly and then gave his sister a big smile. "What is this? Show off." "It's just a trophy, what's there to show off?" The girl bit her lip angrily, snorted coldly, and continued to stare at Zhu Zhuyun. After watching the silent mime performed by Zhu's 2 sisters for a while, Lu Yuan gently clapped his hands. The crisp applause attracted Zhu Zhuyun's gaze. "I have 2 paths for you to choose from here. The first one is dead end. The second one is for me to drive. Choose it." Zhu Zhuyun couldn't help but roll his eyes in his heart. Anyone with a slightly normal mental state would not choose the first path. But the conditions for the second road are indeed somewhat harsh. So, Zhu Zhuyun said tactfully. "Your Excellency, this powerful soul master, I did not consider what I did today and offended you. It is indeed a bit impolite. But the little woman is willing to make compensation for what happened today. Moreover, the little woman is not only the eldest daughter of the Duke's mansion of the Star Luo Empire, but also the crown princess of the Star Luo Empire. Look at her." The subtext is, "My mother's eyes are not good, and I know I was wrong when I kicked your iron plate. You make a price, so that I can redeem my life, but don't expect the lion to speak loudly. The background behind my mother is also very hard. If you really kill me, you won't be able to eat and walk away. Yo-ho." Lu Yuan almost didn't get angry and laughed at. Does he still have the ability to threaten the other party, as all their lives are in his hands? Who is the spoils of war together? But Lu Yuan controlled his expression very well and asked calmly. "The eldest daughter of the Duke of the Starry Empire, isn't she?" "Yes." Or the crown princess of the Star Luo Empire? Yes. Zhu Zhuyun was secretly pleased in his heart. It seems that the inexperienced young man in front of me must have been intimidated by these two names. Since you have such a high status, the conditions I offered are obviously too low. Not only is it low, but it also appears very insincere. I am very satisfied with your honest and sincere speech and suggestions, and I would like to commend and encourage you. I'm not someone who can't listen to others' advice. So, the second path has been temporarily changed to. In addition to being driven by me, one must also maintain absolute loyalty to me. How's it going? Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Seeking recommendations, collecting, and commenting. Cutting my hair and taking a shower, I'm not sure if I can have a second one tonight. I'll try my best. I'm really sorry. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Flying Thunder God Seal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Flying Thunder God Seal. Listen. Is this in human language? Happy ghost. Satisfied ghost. With understanding the underlying lines, the price has actually increased. Are you afraid you're not a devil? Zhu Zhuyun's face was green and white, so angry that he almost bit his silver teeth to pieces. I am the fiancé AE of the Crown Prince of the Star Luo Empire. Zhu Zhuyun repeated it heavily. She hopes to make the other party understand that in a sense, moving her is equivalent to moving the entire Star Empire. Although her life is not worth any money. But the face of the Star Luo Empire is very valuable. Pop. A crisp and loud slap made Zhu Zhuqing instinctively look over. Zhu Zhuyun stood still and reached out to touch her hot and spicy face. The clear touch and pain told her that it was not a dream. No one has ever dared to hit her like this. Therefore, after being slapped for the first time, Zhu Zhuyun instinctively lost consciousness for a moment. Do you have anything else to say besides this sentence? The Crown Princess of the Star Luo Empire. Do you believe that I can make you unable to become this Crown Princess right away? A hint of impatience flashed in Lu Yuan's eyes as he suddenly stood up, forcefully gripping the slender neck of the opponent, and then pressed Zhu Zhuyun against the trunk of the tree. Due to the early development of his body caused by soul power, 12-year-old Lu Yuan is not much shorter than 19-year-old Zhu Zhuyun. From a side view, the height of the two is basically the same. But after seeing the killing intent in Lu Yuan's eyes clearly, he felt the suffocating Zhu Zhuyun's body soften, and then unconsciously lost half a point in momentum. The main reason why you are able to live until now is because your value is higher than these people. But if there is a piece that doesn't cooperate, even if it has high value, it is useless. There are many ways to destroy a chess piece. For example, A deep voice paused. Hiss. The black silk cloth on the back was torn to pieces. The invention of night clothes mainly focused on stealth and concealment. Therefore, the defense is not outstanding. Zhu Zhuyun's plump body stiffened, and a hint of struggle and pleading unconsciously appeared in his eyes. I opened my mouth forcefully, only to find that I was already suffocated and unable to speak. The lack of oxygen continued to worsen, causing her brain to become lethargic. It wasn't until then that Zhu Zhuyun truly panicked. The two little hands tightly grasped onto Lu Yuan's big hand, as if trying to break free from the big hand that was gripping her neck, while the little feet kicked Lu Yuan hard. But Zhu Zhuyun, who had already fallen into a semi-unconscious state, couldn't lift up too much strength at all. His soft and gentle strength was more like acting coquettishly than struggling. In Zhu Zhuqing's fearful gaze, Lu Yuan waited quietly for a moment again, until he felt the opponent's struggling strength becoming weaker and weaker, before suddenly releasing his hand. Two long legs cannot provide any help to Zhu Zhuyun. She could only sit on the ground in a daze, following her instincts and breathing heavily in the air. Lu Yuan squatted down, reached out to pinch Zhu Zhuyun's chin, and pulled Zhu Zhuyun's small face over. My patience is limited. There is no reason for repeated reasoning, I believe you also understand. So, can you give me a satisfactory answer? The red lips moved slightly. A weak and powerless sentence whispered into Lu Yuan's ear. Very good. Although he said so, Lu Yuan's gaze remained as deep as water. I reached out and touched the smooth and delicate skin on the other person's back, with a hint of silver shining on my fingertips. Ah! Zhu Zhuyun instinctively let out a painful cry. Shut up! A cold voice sounded. Zhu Zhuyun's eyes were filled with tears as he reached out his small hand and forcefully covered his mouth. Although it is unclear what this demon is doing to her, it is most likely some means of limiting her. Unexpectedly, Zhu Zhuyun didn't have much hatred in his heart, but instead felt it was a matter of course. If there were no means to balance her fate, she would feel suspicious instead. The silver light on Lu Yuan's fingertips flickered for a moment before disappearing. The silver ancient character, Yuan, shone brightly on Zhu Zhuyun's back, but soon faded away. After fading away, it feels more like a simple tattoo. Lucky enough. This character is the Flying Thunder God imprint he developed. However, he is currently unable to silently penetrate the Flying Thunder God seal into the opponent's body through attacks, just like the Sect Master. But currently he can barely bury the imprint of the Flying Thunder God into the human body. Lu Yuan touched the word. Do you know what this is? I don't know, Zhu Zhuyun answered honestly. I don't know, so it's better to be honest. Lu Yuan choked on Zhu Zhuyun calmly and stood up. Get lost. A hint of inexplicable grievance flashed in Zhu Zhuyun's eyes. He bit lightly and picked up the torn night clothes on the ground. His figure moved slightly and disappeared into the jungle. Zhu Zhuqing was slightly moved. Don't think about chasing after me, even if I catch up with you, I can't beat you. Lu Yuan mercilessly poured cold water on the young girl. A great soul master challenges a soul master. Excluding the difference in soul power levels, soul master needs to have one more soul ring than the great soul master. In other words, it means adding a more powerful millennium soul skill. Even if the mentality of this soul master explodes, the fault tolerance rate is much higher than that of the great soul master. Only soul masters with very high martial soul quality have the possibility of cross-border combat. For example, Haotian Hammer, 7-kill sword, Bone Dragon, Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus Rex. The Ghost Spirit Cat is definitely not suitable. The Ghost White Tiger may be able to achieve cross-border combat. Can you tell me exactly what she said to you? After a long silence, the girl couldn't suppress her curiosity and asked. For her sister, Zhu Zhuqing's mentality always becomes very complex. On the one hand, she told herself to kill the other person without hesitation. On the other hand, I always miss the happy time sisters spent together when I was young. Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows. Do you want to know? After pondering for a while, Zhu Zhuqing finally gritted his head and said, I want to know. She said, you can call me brother.in.law now. It's okay if you don't want to say it. The girl let out a cold snort with no expression on her face. This statement is immediately false. Both she and her sister Zhu Zhuyun were bound to death by the engagement. Brother-in-law. Let's not talk about the issue of young grass-eating old cows for now. We cannot pass the level of the Star Luo royal family alone. Lu Yuan awkwardly waved his hand and said, just kidding, just kidding. Actually, what she said was that she unilaterally agreed to the marriage between you and me. A hint of anger flashed in the girl's clear eyes. Don't believe it. Lu Yuan saw the anger in the girl's eyes clearly and asked back with a smile. Do you think I should believe it? I think you should believe it, Zhu Zhuqing. Do you know my name? Zhu Zhuqing instinctively felt a hint of defense. I know, because that's what your sister told me. Staring at the calm and composed young man for a while, Zhu Zhuqing's eyes flashed with a hint of enlightenment. Big scammer, she said indignantly. Although she was not sure exactly what was going on, her intuition told her that the big scammer across from her definitely didn't get her name from her sister. Don't call me a big scammer, I have a name. My name is Lu Yuan. Zhu Zhuqing. Looking at the young man's outstretched hand, the girl hesitated for a moment, reached out and lightly grasped it, but did not expect to be tightly held by the young man and not let go. This is the first time a playful and smiling boy has met a girl with a cold face. It's also the first time I've remembered each other's names. Seeking collection, seeking recommendations, seeking comments. 23.38, I never thought I could make it out 3 consecutive requests, end of this chapter. Chapter 10. Encounter again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Encounter again, Soto City. Lu Yuan raised his hand to block the dazzling sunlight, looked at the 3 big characters on the city gate, and spoke in a long tone. The girl on the side with a cold expression rolled her eyes and walked straight towards the city. Wait for me. Lu Yuan quickly put away the map in his hand and followed up. Soto City is a large city located in the center of the Lima Plain and belongs to the Kingdom of Barak. There are heavy soldiers guarding the city, and the specific importance can be imagined. In addition to being heavily guarded, the importance of Soto City can also be seen from the configuration of the 3rd-level Martial Soul Main Hall in the city's Martial Soul Hall. After all, the money from the Martial Soul Hall was not brought by strong winds, so there must be a clear standard for where to set up the main hall and where to set up sub-halls. Of course, besides this, Soto City has another identity. That is the granary of the Barak Kingdom. It goes without saying how important food is. It can be said that breaking through this place is equivalent to pinching the lifeline of the entire Barak Kingdom. However, Lu Yuan did not come here for this city, but for Shrek College located in a small village outside Soto. Shrek College was not well known at this time. What truly brought this college into the public eye was the battle in which it defeated the golden generation of the Martial Soul Hall in the Soul Master competition. The 3 gods fighting and the 7 gods soaring behind can only be said to have thickened the golden signboard of Shrek Academy. Even without the battle of the 3 gods and the ascension of the 7 gods, Shrek Academy will not be short of students after completing the Soul Master competition. However, there is no need to rush with the registration process. The top priority is to find a place to stay first. Lu Yuan's footsteps stopped in front of a 3-story hotel. Rose Hotel. Lu Yuan touched his chin, and a hint of inexplicable meaning flashed in his eyes. He turned his head to look at Zhu Zhuqing not far away and said, "Let's live here." Zhu Zhuqing frowned. To be honest, she also guessed some of Lu Yuan's cautious thoughts. Coming to a hotel that appears somewhat ambiguous from the outside, pursuing her thoughts can be seen even by herself. But from Lu Yuan's words, she couldn't pinpoint any flaws either. So, Zhu Zhuqing simply made it clear. Give up, I already have an engagement. Having an engagement doesn't mean getting married immediately, getting married doesn't mean I don't have a chance, even if I don't have a chance now, it doesn't mean I won't have a chance decades later, as long as there's love. Shameless. Zhu Zhuqing glanced coldly at Lu Yuan, then quickly entered the hotel and walked to the front desk, gently tapping on the table and saying, "Hello, open 2 rooms. I'm very sorry, we only have 1 suite left here." The front desk of the hotel said the lines that had been prepared for a long time without changing their expression, and then squinted their eyes at Lu Yuan who followed behind. The scene of a boy and a girl arguing outside the door has long been captured by the front desk, and coupled with the girl's aggressive approach, she firmly insisted on opening 2 rooms. If you still can't figure it out, why not be the hotel front desk? Why do men trouble men? Little brother, I have arranged this for you. Lu Yuan understood instantly and then smiled back behind Zhu Zhuqing. Lu Yuan is not sure if this hotel really only has one suite left. But for young men and women who appear to be a couple from the outside, this hotel will always only have one suite left. Rose Hotel, which serious hotel would take this ridiculous name? What's wrong with you? Do you understand what first come, first served means? Before Zhu Zhuyun could even decide whether to move to another hotel, the girl next to her spoke angrily. Unlike Zhu Zhuyun, the girl who criticized Zhu Zhuyun clearly took a cute path. A pink dress, pink high stockings, and pink bunny hair accessories exude the style of a neighbor girl, making people feel refreshed at first glance. Zhu Zhuyun is different. Whether it's a cold face, a tight leather jacket, or a curvaceous figure, it looks like a cold and aloof senior sister. Your girlfriend. Lu Yuan, who was already familiar with it, glared at Tang San's arm and gestured for an angry little dance. No, it's my sister. You are. Tang San looked at Lu Yuan with an inexplicable familiarity. In addition to this familiarity, the every move of the young man in front of him also made him feel a sense of familiarity. Zhu Zhuyun was too lazy to argue with a little girl who didn't know the height and thickness of the earth. He stepped out of his long legs and wanted to leave, but he stopped in front of the hotel door in a daze. Sorry, my girlfriend seems to be looking for me for something. Lu Yuan apologetically patted Tang San's shoulder and quickly walked towards the girl standing at the door. Who is he? Xiao Wu looked at Lu Yuan's back in confusion. Tang San spread his hands innocently. I'm not sure either. I just had a brief conversation, it should be the boyfriend of that black-haired girl. Xiao Wu obediently, and didn't ask much. After all, in Xiao Wu's view, leaving without saying a word itself represents the other party's guilt and already knows their mistake. Since the competitors have voluntarily withdrawn, Xiao Wu naturally enjoys it. Zhu Zhuyun looked at the man and two women outside the hotel with a pale complexion, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. But even if she doesn't believe her eyes, she has to be forced to believe the facts she sees at this moment. Her fiancé, unexpectedly holding a pair of sisters, ran straight towards the hotel. Zhu Zhuyun can tolerate Dai Mubai's behavior of running away alone, but she cannot accept Dai Mubai's attitude of self-abandonment and giving up struggle. Does he think he carries only his own life? From the day the engagement was made, her life and the other person's life were already tied together. Prosperity and loss are not just words. How could Dai Mubai, who is so willing to fall for herself, be able to hold up on her own? 9 to death and 10 to no life are two different things. If Dai Mubai works together with her, it may not be impossible to turn the tables. Although the probability of a comeback is very small, it is not without it. But if it's just her, there's no possibility of a Jedi comeback. Not to mention that her soul power is not superior. Even if her soul power is on par with Zhu Zhuyun Davis, she cannot use the Ghost Spirit Cat to defeat the opponent's martial soul fusion technique. The Ghost White Tiger. For a moment, years of accumulated grievances mixed with a sense of powerlessness surged in Zhu Zhuyun's heart. Her body shook uncontrollably, as if she was about to fall backwards. A big hand tightly wrapped around her waist and pulled her into its embrace, tightly embracing her. Zhu Zhuyun instinctively struggled. Don't move. A deep voice rang in her ear, accompanied by a burst of heat. If you don't want to embarrass yourself here, it's best to listen to me. If you are not afraid of making a fuss about this matter and insist on seeking an explanation from him here, then I can let go. Accompanied by a faint choking sound that was almost imperceptible, Zhu Zhuyun did not struggle anymore. Her two small hands slowly grasped Lu Yuan's clothes, and a faint sense of moisture spread through the clothes to Lu Yuan's skin. Dai Mubai pushed open the hotel door and couldn't help but take a curious look at this strange couple combination. But he didn't pay too much attention and instead turned his gaze to Tang San and Xiao Wu, who were negotiating with the front desk. If I remember correctly, this suite was reserved for me for years, right? Dai Mubai is unusually angry. Dai Xiao, I'm really sorry, he hasn't heard of anyone new here. Staring fiercely at the front desk waiter, the manager quickly apologized to Dai Mubai by bowing his head. So it's still my fault. Sen's words made the manager shiver and quickly accompanied him with a smile. Dai Xiao was joking, it was still our dereliction of duty. Turning his head to look at the waiter, who looked like a lump in elm, the manager couldn't help but scold. What are you still doing there? Hurry up. Where's the key? I have received the contract, but there are some unclear questions. I have added 2 editors but have not yet approved the application, so I am not willing to fill in blindly for now. Seeking collection, seeking recommendations, seeking comments. End of this chapter.